Thank you very much for joining the second Global Learning and Global Engagement series for RISE. And this is RISE is the living learning community for STEM freshman students, but this event is open to everyone. So we are excited to have not only freshman students, but also sophomore and other upper classmen students. So thank you again for joining. So this series this series of event is has three sessions. The first one was really focusing on the region of Europe. And we had faculty members and alumni joining us and talking about their career pathway as STEM students or researchers and experience in Europe or experience coming from Europe. And then this one, the second one is focusing the region of Asia and Oceania. So we have faculty member who has program in Japan, and Dr. Nagatomi joining us as a moderator. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have three panelists in presence. So we have Rachel Thompson, who is the alumna, and she will introduce herself later. So Rachel Thompson is the alumna, MSc alumna, and currently working in Ohio. And we have two current students, and they will again introduce themselves who study abroad in Thailand and Australia. We have two panelists who are not here, but shared video recording of their introduction, self-introduction, as well as some responses to questions that you may have. So we'll share that as well. So I guess we do not have other students coming in right now. So I will end polling and just share the recording, share the result. And I can relaunch polling later if we have more students coming in. So we have 4 cecas students, 4 science students, great balance. And then and we have freshmen and sophomores, and that this is perfect because, so that you can learn a lot about the experience in Asia and Oceania and actually go to those countries after the pandemic is under control. Yes. And have you been to Asia or Oceania? There's one, yes. Okay, I'm curious if this one person wanna raise a hand or not. No, maybe. Bibi.
Oh, it's me.
Okay. Where have you been?
Oh, I've been to China when I was younger. I live with my grandparents, so that's why I've been to Asia before.
Okay, great. And then others have not. So this, I hope you will learn a lot from all the panelists and moderator, Dr. Nagatomi, and you will enjoy the session. Oh, by the way, I forgot to introduce myself. So my name is Yuki Kihara, and I'm the Assistant Director of Global Engagement in the College of Science. And we have a colleague who advises students in cecas. So John C., do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is John C. Stansel, and I advise students in cecas. So if you're in cecas and you sign up for an advising appointment, you will come visit me, well, via Zoom right now, but hopefully sometime in person. So thank you for joining us, and I'm excited to hear from our panelists.
All right, so now let's get started. So Dr. Nagatomi, please, floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I didn't get to join the poll because I'm one of the hosts, but as a matter of fact, I am currently in Asia. I'm in Tokyo, Japan. So it's 6:30, well, 6:50 in the morning over here. I'm here because of my sabbatical leave from Clemson University, but I'm a professor of bioengineering. And those of you, well, I don't recognize any names because you're freshmen and sophomores. Those of you who have taken my class before, I teach junior level biomechanics course in bioengineering. Well, especially in the fall when classes were all online, I always started saying please turn on your camera to show your beautiful face. So go ahead, please show your face, attendees. I see all the panelists, but it would be good to see not the names in print, but your actual faces when I speak. So good afternoon. I see someone outside. Looks nice in Clemson. Yeah, it's getting warmer here in Tokyo too. And because of that, the pollen, flying all over the place, and I'm, sneezing, sniffling all day. Well, let's get started by introducing our panelists. We have 3 student panelists, current student, Clemson students, and 2 alumni of Clemson University. Let's start with Grant, and then go to Kate, and we have Aiden, who's going to join by video. So go ahead, Grant, talk to us about who you are, where you went, why you're here.
All right, yeah, so I'm Grant Crochelle. I'm a senior biosci major. And so I went last spring to Mahidol University, which is in Salaya, Thailand. It's about 45 minutes west of Bangkok, through the CIS Abroad program. The classes I took while I was over there, I took Intro to Thai Language and Culture, Current Issues in Biotechnology, Marine Biology, and Ecology and Conservation. And next year, I'm actually going to do a post-bac research position in Bethesda, Maryland. And yeah, and so what I think you also wanted us to mention, one thing I miss from being in Thailand is got to be the food. That was definitely the highlight of it. It was so good. I ate so much different stuff. And it was also just always so cheap, which was really cool, because then I was able to eat as much as I want. I was never hungry. And so, yeah, that's pretty much a little bit about me. Looking forward to talking to you guys about whatever questions you have.
So I'm Kate Tolleson, and I have a little photo presentation really quick that I'm gonna show. If I can find it. There it is. Okay, so I just did a few little pictures about where I went. So I went to the University of Newcastle in Australia. I'm a chemical engineering major. I'm a junior. So I took one chemical engineering class, which was thermodynamics 1. I also took world religions, which was really interesting, taking that in a different country. And then I took 2 psychology courses to fulfill my minor. And I went to Newcastle through the Global Engineering Exchange program. But I believe you can also go to the University of Newcastle through maybe CIS Abroad and through just Clemson Exchange, I'm pretty sure. So there's other ways to go to Newcastle, even if you're not an engineering student, but that's how I did it. But first I went to, since we're talking about Asia as well, I thought I'd include this. I went to Vietnam for 2 weeks before I went to Australia. This was kind of on my own, kind of a pit stop on the way to Australia. But it was the highlight of my entire trip, including my time in Australia. Vietnam was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. I started in the south and went all the way up to North Vietnam. So I hit all the major cities, Hanoi, Hoi An, all those. And yeah, so this is where I spent most of my time in Australia. This is the beach. I lived 10 minutes from this in Australia, in Newcastle. I spent pretty much every day of my month and whatever amount of time I was here was at the beach when I wasn't in class. And then this was definitely the best part, was the people I lived with. I did an exchange, so I was the only American. And I lived with 19 Australians, boys and girls. So this is where we live. These are some of the people I lived with. And this is the University of Newcastle. So pretty nice in the middle of Australian wilderness, pretty much. And then, yeah, so the best part of it was the friends I made. I got to climb the Sydney Bridge and I saw a koala. And yeah, I would recommend all these foods except Vegemite. That was the worst. Don't try Vegemite. And the best was, these are fries with chicken salt on them, which is amazing. We'd recommend chicken salt. It's just salt that tastes like chicken. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Thanks.
Okay,
so can you show the video from Aiden?
Yes, I will do that. Good.
Hey guys, my name is Aiden Powers. I'd like to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to me, albeit by recording. But this is a pretty important topic to me. My study abroad was a great experience, so really happy to share what my experience was like with you guys. So a little bit about me. I am a civil engineering major with a minor in architecture, and I'll be graduating May and moving out to San Diego to work for Clark Construction as a project engineer. So really excited about that. Here's a picture of me. I thought it was pretty fitting. I'm in the Ginger Gardens in Singapore, which is part of the Botanical Gardens of Singapore, and that's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So really, really cool place to go. So if you're ever there, definitely take a visit. So I studied at Nanyang Technological University, or NTU, and NTU is ranked 5th in the world for engineering. And something I found really cool about this university is how sustainably conscious their campus was. And they largely got to this point by enacting this initiative back in 2011 called the Eco Campus Initiative. And what they've started doing is doing research and development of all these technologies to improve sustainability and then implementing on campus. So I think since 2011, they've reduced waste, energy, and water consumption by 35%. And I think that's really interesting, really cool to see a university taking that into its own hands. And I hope Clemson can maybe do that someday. So something else that was really cool is there's 32,000 students, and about 1,000 of those were exchange students when I was there. So I was making friends with people from Finland, from France, from Spain, from the UK. So this was not something I was really expecting going into the process, but it's instead of just learning about Singaporean culture, I got to learn about cultures from all over the world. So really rewarding. So I've been asked to answer a few questions. Just going to.
Okay, that was Aiden's.
Okay, so you're gonna show the rest of his video later when we get to the question part.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move on to Rachel, the alumni.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I graduated from Clemson with a bachelor's in material science and engineering in December 2019. I studied abroad at KAIST, Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology in Daejeon, South Korea, which is the 5th largest city in South Korea. It's an hour or two just southeast of Seoul. I took 3 materials classes, 1 gen ed, in fall 2017, and right now I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I work as a material application engineer for GE Aviation. And one of the things I miss is also food, food and the people, which I think is a pretty across the board experience.
Hey everyone. So imagine if you're listening to this and you are you're listening to the STEM panel for study abroad related stuff at Clemson. It's a little bit about me. My name is Dr. Jason Pierce. I went to Clemson and graduated back in 2014, did bioengineering with a biomaterials emphasis, and then went on to medical school at MUSC, and currently an anesthesiology resident in Seattle, Washington, applying for a pediatric anesthesia fellowship. Enough about all that. Just with regards to my study abroad experience, I did my program in Japan with Dr. Nagatomi back in the summer of 2013. We went to the University of Tokyo. As far as what I did, my project was, actually I had to go back and look at it. It was with Dr. Furukawa, and we looked at cell adhesions to microsubstrates, and the bulk of my project was looking at stuff under fluorescent microscopy. We did some Western blot, some cell culture. variety of other things, but the stuff that stuck out to me most during the project itself was the basic lab work. As far as the overall experience goes, for me personally, the research itself wasn't the most important thing, just both professionally and personally. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but overall, I miss Japan. It was a great experience. And the one thing that I miss most is probably the food. If I had to put two, it's my friends. They'd probably get mad if I didn't say that I missed them or wanted to spend time with them. So as far as why Japan for my summer abroad experience, it's actually a happy accident.
Sorry, I should have stopped a little sooner, but that was Jason, Dr. Jason Pierce.
Okay. Oh, I thought you were gonna continue, but so a little bit about me. As Jason mentioned, I run a study abroad program from Clemson, which sends students for 8 weeks to Tokyo or Osaka, Japan. And students will be placed in research laboratory and work with the host graduate students or postdocs. And then on weekends, there are some free time to travel around. Jason may talk a little bit more about that. And also we've been doing an online exchange before the trip so that you get to meet your host in advance prior to arrival in Japan, and then work on the group projects together so that you have some goal together. And then after you arrive in Japan, you get to visit company, mostly medical device company, and you get to present your group project research to the company people. And so that's in a nutshell what the Japan program is about. And it's for your course credit, and it's open to almost all engineering and science majors. And we worked out so that you get credits towards your graduation, whether you're in chemical engineering or material science and engineering or biological sciences, biochem, genetics. So like I said, I'm not there right now, but I'll be back in the fall semester. You can come find me in Rhodes Hall, or I'll be, or Yuki will be sending out information. John C will be sending out information to CCAS students, and we'll be accepting applications for the summer of 2022. So enough of that, and I guess we can move on to the actual panel discussion. But at this point, have you seen any questions from the audience? No? Okay, so let's go through. We have prepared some questions for the panelists. Let's go with the first one. Why or what made you decide to go to the country that you went to, Australia, Thailand, or Japan, Korea? Let's start with Grant. Why Thailand?
Yeah, so when I first met with Yuki, I think this was spring of my sophomore year, we're kind of just going over what programs were available, what my options were. And by that time, I had already pretty much finished most of my gen eds and just kind of had some higher level science classes I needed to take to graduate. And so basically asked her what programs were available that I could still get these credits towards my major. And she gave me 3 or 4, I think, to look at. One of them being the one that I went to in Thailand, one being South Korea, I believe, and one was Costa Rica, and then the last one was Cyprus. And so kind of just looked at all 4 of those and looked at pictures and like anecdotes, kind of things from programs. And I really thought the Thailand one just from all that looked really, really cool. And also I had a friend that went and visited in high school, and he'd showed me pictures and told me stories. And I'd always wanted to go since he had talked about that. And then I think the last kind of factor was like Europe or South America or Central America. I could see myself going probably at any point in my life and going on vacation with my family or something. Whereas Thailand, like, who knows when I'll ever be able to go back there or have the time to spend a whole month there and kind of live there. So that's really how I fell upon Thailand. Didn't think too much about it. It just kind of happened, and then definitely don't regret it though.
How about you, Kate?
So I ended up choosing Australia because I started going through the options of the Global Engineering Exchange, which was a lot of looking through probably like 50 different universities across the world and saying like, where can I take the courses I need in a specific semester? And no chemical engineer had gone abroad for a semester before and taken chemical engineering classes. So I was kind of figuring it out for myself. And so I ended up either being able to go to, the options were Newcastle, Australia, or Copenhagen, Denmark. And I decided on Australia, one, because of the weather and the beach, two, because cost of living was going to be a lot cheaper in Australia. And I guess it was just two. Yeah, and three was because there's a summer program for chemical engineering that goes to Copenhagen, Denmark. So I kind of wanted to do something different. So I went to Australia. So that's kind of how I ended up on that choice.
Thanks, Kate. You brought up a nice point about student advising or getting some help. So in CCAS, we don't have Yuki's counterpart right now to handle this kind of advising, but I think Jonesy, are you from the Clemson Abroad, Pam Hendricks side, who's designated to help college or CCAS students?
Yeah, so I do the advising for the CCAS students, and started that so not this academic year, but the one before. So Matt Long did have all those responsibilities, and then they kind of parsed it out to where I'm doing advising now. And then now we're missing Matt, sad days. But I do have advising. So if anybody does have questions, feel free to come to me, and we'll put our information in the chat.
I also worked under Matt up until I still am the peer ambassador for the College of Engineering. So I can also answer any questions and advise. I'm like a mini Matt.
Very good. Excellent. You want to show Jason's answer to this question? He started talking a little bit about this. Why Japan?
Wanted to spend time with them. So as far as why Japan for my summer abroad experience, it's actually a happy accident. I wanted to do an abroad experience that summer just to get a different sense of a worldview, to broaden my horizons a little bit, and initially applied for a study abroad program in China, since I was taking Mandarin at that time. And didn't get into the program, but was talking with Dr. Nagatomi because I was taking one of his classes. And he said, hey, why don't you come to the University of Tokyo with me and a couple other students and participate in this research project. And I thought, I'm not doing anything else this summer, and I was trying to do something abroad, so it sounded like a really good experience. So I applied and got into the program.
Looking back, before you went abroad, what were some of the concerns, questions, expectations you had towards your experience or country? And how did those change after you get back? Let's go to Rachel. You went to Korea. You had some concerns, I'm sure, and perception might have changed. Go ahead.
Sure. So I also went through GE3 because KAIST is also one of the member universities, and I was the only person from Clemson who went to KAIST that semester. And I'm not sure, maybe till that point as well. I didn't know Korean. I was totally by myself, went by myself, had never done like a trip that far away from home for that long. I didn't know like how the pace of work would be or how hard it would be at a completely different school. And when I got there, it was kind of scary at first, but there were a bunch of other exchange students. So at least in the beginning, you do form like that instant connection with other exchange students, whether they're from the US, Europe, other countries in Asia, South America, everywhere. So that kind of went away, and they assign you like a Korean buddy or a student of that university who can kind of help you get around the country or just the school in general or the city, because it was quite a big place. And as far as like how hard the work was, I purposefully took only 4 classes, which is like the bare minimum of full time, because I did kind of want it to be, a little vacation-y, and not have to worry all the time about school. There was a point where I guess maybe midpoint, I kind of faltered a little. It was maybe a little more difficult than I had expected. But the professors were all super nice and approachable and wanted to help you out. And I made friends with, students in my materials classes, and we kind of got together. So definitely had some concerns, but you kind of figure out how to adapt when you're there. Not knowing the language, I started taking lessons when I was there. That's a big one. Even just like learning how to read was the biggest thing, because even if you don't know what it means, at least you can read it and you can say it to other people and they can help you out as well. So
Rachel mentioned a little bit about the language barrier. I guess Kate didn't have a language barrier in Australia. Grant, how about you? How did it go?
Yes, this was definitely something that was intimidating for me, like before I got there, like not knowing the language at all. Well, good thing was a good amount of people there spoke at least a little bit of English, so you could say something to them and get around pretty easily. Biggest problem was probably like taxi drivers, because sometimes you look at them and they'd say something to you and you'd try to speak them in English and they'd just give you a blank stare. Obviously they didn't speak it, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely ways to get around it. You can, using your phone was a huge, just Google Translate, typing something out and showing it to them. And then that helped a lot. And then another thing, I mean, at my university, they recommend that pretty much all the exchange students take intro to Thai language and culture, which is what I did. And that helped a lot because it kind of just taught us, we didn't work on reading or writing at all, just speaking, but it taught us like basics of getting around, ordering food, buying things from a store, that kind of stuff. And that actually really helped, because that's basically all you really need. But like I said, there was plenty of people there that spoke English, or at least a little bit, that would be willing to translate for you if you needed help or anything like that.
Thanks, Grant. Yuki, do you have any video queued up?
Back before you went abroad, what were some of the concerns, questions, or expectations you had towards your experience or country, and how did these change after you got there or spent some time there? So I think one of the things I was most concerned about was the fact that I'd be one of the only non-native English speakers. And this was kind of silly because everyone spoke English there. But even then, everyone was just so open. And I think the reason is just Singapore is this melting pot of people from all over Asia, brings in a lot of Westerners just because of all the opportunities they have there. So everyone's very excited to learn about you, learn about your background for the most part. So I thought this was really great. Made a lot of quality connections over there that I still maintain to this day.
What was one of the biggest culture shocks or discoveries you had? Let's go to Kate. What was the biggest culture shock? I know you didn't have the language barrier because it was in Australia, but how was it?
I didn't have too much culture shock in Australia. I guess one of the things that kind of similar to culture shock, something I really had to get used to when I was in both Vietnam and Australia was just being the only American everywhere. It was kind of interesting. So you always just feel when you first meet people and you're the only American especially when you're living with like 19 Australians, for a second, it's just very like out of place and uncomfortable for a second. But it takes you a few days and then it goes away instantly. And it's kind of fun being the only American too. I have to say, you get random questions about America and stuff, and it's funny. But other like culture wise, Australia wasn't terribly different. It was just, I would say everything, like the culture in general is just much more relaxed about everything in Australia. I feel like in America, we're very like deadlines, like go, always have to be productive, and Australia was much more relaxed, have fun about most things, like whether it's class or just hanging out with people. It's much more relaxed atmosphere, which was really nice. So that was kind of the difference in culture for me.
Great, thanks. And again, you bring up a nice point about being the only American, wherever. And that's, really the point of doing a study abroad. Yuki and John C can join in to comment to, why we are promoting this study abroad to you guys, just go away from Clemson, or from the US and being the only American there to kind of, help you realize that for one, there are people outside of the United States, and also to, understand what it feels like to be the only Japanese or the only whoever in your community where you are. And then, you can be a little more sympathetic towards, the either racial minorities or whatever sexual minorities that, we always talk about these days. So, regardless whether you, pick up any, the Thai language or the cooking, that's important too. But, what we want you guys to bring back is that kind of, mind shift after you come back to Clemson and then, rejoin our American culture. So, so in that sense, let's move on to another question. Rachel, where was it? Is KAIST in a big city in Korea, or was it more of a countryside?
Yeah, so it's in the 5th largest city in South Korea. So it's like a really big city, and the campus is almost its own mini, like self-contained area, because there's like a hospital on campus, there's lots of different like food places. We even have convenience stores like in the dorms. And yeah, it was huge.
Yeah. What was it like to navigate in a big city? Well, right now, or you're in what, Cleveland, Ohio, you said?
Cincinnati,
or,
yeah.
Cincinnati. So you're a bigger city than Clemson.
For sure.
Yeah. You want to show, Yuki, you want to show Jason's video about, what was it, being in a big city?
It was pretty shocking. I'd never been to a city that large before, and that was probably the biggest shock. Was just everything was huge. The buildings were huge. There's tons of people, and in the States, the thing that I can most liken it to is Los Angeles. But honestly, it felt a lot bigger than that. Way bigger than Seattle, definitely. So it was definitely a maze trying to get around the city at first and learning where to go. But Dr. Nagatomi was very helpful, especially at the beginning with helping everybody get their bearings. And then from there on out, you kind of just explore and figure everything out on your own.
Very good. I appreciate that you said some nice things about me and my program. So, well, let's turn to, how the, experience in Asia or, Australia help you right now, and or maybe talk about the benefits of, science, technology, engineering, math majors to go study abroad in Asia. Let's go. Grant, you want to say something about the benefits of doing?
Yeah, I think I gained a whole lot just from the fact that the classes set up there is just way different than it is here. They're much smaller classes than what I was used to. And also, especially, I don't know, can't speak for any engineering, but a lot of my science classes are, it's a lot more like here, it's at least a lot more memorization, and the tests would be kind of short answer or multiple choice. And there was a lot more, we would be in classes a lot more discussion based, and we'd be looking at more specific examples to kind of illustrate the broader topics that we were going about. And then the tests would be more kind of essay, long answer. And so just having that class setup that I'm not used to, I think definitely helped me in my learning, my study habits, just in terms of learn that's just a new way to learn. And I think that definitely helped me. And then also, just like here, where all my professors are doing some of their own research, all my professors there had their own research they were doing, but just the way they do research was set up completely differently. It's a little less informal for them, but they had a lot more freedom from the university, and it was cool to see just the different ways that they do research and see that it's not all just going to be exactly the same as how we do it in America. Everyone's got their own different way of doing everything. And I think it really just kind of opened my eyes and changed my perspective a little bit on all that kind of stuff.
Very good. The same question, Kate. What benefits do you think are engineering students getting from studying abroad?
So I'm not only an engineering student, but I'm also a pre-medical student too. So I guess I can talk on both aspects. For engineering, I think it's really important to get a study abroad experience when you're an engineer, because engineering is so focused on collaboration and teamwork, and being able to go to a different place and interact with other people, adapt to a different learning style, different teaching styles, just teaches you how to interact with any kind of person and work on a team with other people. And engineers are creating things that benefit all aspects of our society. So having kind of that universal mindset is so important for our engineers to have. So that's why I think it's so important for engineers to go abroad, even if it doesn't seem like it would be important. And as for being pre-med, I know that I'll be able to talk about my experience going abroad for medical school interviews so much. And if I was going to get a job after this, I'd talk about it in job interviews all the time. And yeah, it put a more global mindset in my head. I know I want to travel more when I'm a doctor too, Doctors Without Borders or anything like that. And I also was able to get Tefl Certified, which is teaching English as a foreign language, when I got back, because I knew that I wanted to go again before medical school, since my experience was cut short. So in a gap year before medical school now, I'm planning to go to Thailand and teach English for 6 months. So that was kind of exciting. It inspired me to go and travel more, especially in Asia, because I really liked my experience there.
Awesome. That's another thing that I want to emphasize. You want to, so go back and or experience a different country too, from your first study abroad experience. Rachel, now you're a working engineer. What do you think? How did your experience help you, get your job or, help you what you do?
Yeah, so I think I also echo some of the sentiments that Kate went over of how it was more, the experience is more for my personal growth and how I interact with other people. The company I work for is global, and we have sites in all different countries, and the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis, sometimes Poland lately, just like having a viewpoint of, stop and think and consider, all the different opinions and viewpoints, and everybody has a different background, and kind of knowing how to adapt how you work to best synergize with other people from different countries and different backgrounds. And it's definitely an experience for, for any challenges that I had when I was studying abroad. It was good in interviews and things like that as a talking point of, what issues I had and how I solved them. So it was more of a
Awesome.
personal growth.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Can you show Jason's video answering this question?
Can we go Aiden first?
Oh, Aiden, yeah, sure.
Aiden has
Aiden, queued up.
responses.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, yeah.
Definitely does this. It throws you into a new culture and forces you to experience culture shock. And you're going to get over that culture shock. You're going to have to in order to enjoy your time there. And it's going to take some time. But I think it's like this exposure therapy. It's personally, I don't think I'd be moving out to San Diego after graduation without study abroad, because it did teach me how to take that new culture and that new place and to kind of make it my own. So I think this is something that's pretty important for everyone. And then also just being able to study your topic or your discipline someplace outside of what you're familiar with. So for me, I learned a lot about sustainability in construction. I learned about improving efficiency, and a lot of these practices haven't really been thought of in the US just because the need isn't there. But Singapore is a super small country, so they're shipping in all their prefabricated concrete members in from China instead of doing everything on site, just because of the lack of resources they have. And this proves to be a lot more efficient. It can be more sustainable. It can even be economically viable. So it kind of gets you thinking about those practices over there, like why can't we implement them back home? And whatever your discipline is, I'm sure you'll develop that mindset. And I think that's something that's super important.
Yeah, so Noah was just asking, how difficult was it to stay in contact with friends and family from home with the spatial difference and time difference? It's a really great question.
All right, let's start with Grant.
Yeah, so Bangkok is exactly 12 hours different from here. So that was really difficult because if I ever wanted to speak to my parents or my friends or whatever, it would be like first thing in the morning or before I went to bed. So yeah, that was probably one of the more difficult things while I was over there, is keeping in touch with everyone here. But I mean, I used a like texting app. They don't have or they don't really use GroupMe. It's called or we use WhatsApp mostly over there. But I had a WhatsApp with my family, and I was able to just kind of send them texts and pictures of what I was doing, and then they just get it whenever they woke up and respond to it. So yeah, the amount of face-to-face and kind of interaction right there wasn't a whole lot, but we definitely did still communicate and tried our best to keep up with each other and stuff.
Thanks, Grant. How about you, Kate? It's about 12 hours difference also, right?
Yeah, so in Vietnam, it was 12 hours difference as well. So I noticed that as well, the two weeks I was in Vietnam, and that was a little frustrating because it'd be like 9:30 p.m. for me when it was 9:30 a.m. for them. So there wasn't a very big window to be able to talk to them in Vietnam. But Australia, it was fine. It was a 16-hour difference with Australia. So it'd be like 9:30 in the morning tomorrow in America when it was 5:30 in Australia. So that was fine because I could call them anytime at night or anytime in the morning, and it would work out that way. So it was definitely really easy. I was able to do like interviews for summer internships and stuff over there. So the timing worked out fine with Australia.
How about you, Rachel?
Yeah, it was like maybe 12 hours or just short. You kind of find the window that works best for like you and your parents or whoever you're trying to talk to. Texting a lot. I also use WhatsApp. You kind of use those like internet texting rather than phone service texting. It actually worked out better sometimes because my mom works night shift as a nurse. So I knew that when I was up, she was also up. So we would like text back and forth during the day.
Very good. Yeah. So nowadays, with all these communication tools and cell phones and smartphones, it's much easier. Back when I was a student about 30 years ago, I came from Japan to the US, and there was no such thing as the internet even, and we had to rely on phone, and phone bills, the cost was so high, it's like a dollar a minute, and so it was too expensive to call that frequently, and the time difference also. And then I guess it depends on your personality or your family dynamics too, but I just kind of learned to handle myself, resolve problems on my own without relying on family. And so that was one of the things. And then, started making new friends locally, and then that, became sort of the center of my life, not to forget my own family or friends in Japan, but that's something. I mean, I didn't just go for 3 months or a year or semester. I've been in the U.S. since undergrad and college, so my experience is a little bit different, and I do recommend going back to your country once after you study abroad, and then you can figure out whether you want to go back out again to different location, whatnot. But anyways, Yuki, do you have Jason's video?
Yes.
To answer some of these questions?
Yes, so he has the video recording to about his overall experience and how it benefited his professional development or career. So I'll show that.
An amazing experience and really helped shape my personal life and had some effects on my professional life as well. And as I mentioned before, I would do it again in a heartbeat. So after going on that trip, I probably shouldn't call it a trip, that research experience, I developed a strong interest in Japanese language. I took a couple courses when I got back in Clemson my senior year, went to Japan again before medical school and spent the summer there studying Japanese, and had a tutor when I was in medical school, and made my Japanese priority for me just to, I don't know, it helped me, again, get a more of a worldview and communicate with all the friends that I made while I was there. And this whole experience from a professional standpoint has been a talking point in a lot of my interviews. People could care a little bit less about what the research project was, or if I did a research project in Clemson. It's not as interesting as, like, you did this research project in a foreign country, and people want to talk about that experience, and it just brings up something else to talk about, makes you a little bit different of an applicant. For one of my residency interviews, I think down in UC Irvine, I spent the entire time talking with one of the ladies about my this trip we took to Mount Fuji one weekend, where we did a midnight or an overnight climb and summited in the morning. Also, probably the highlight of my trip. That was awesome. You guys should all do that if you end up going there. But I think a lot of you guys would benefit from doing a study abroad in Japan or Singapore, or whatever options there are out there. It's one summer in college, and I think it could have a lot of long-lasting, amazing effects on you personally and throughout your career. And definitely worth it to broaden your horizons, if anything else, and change things up from studying at the same place semester in, semester out. And a lot of the questions here look like they're more geared towards the people that end up doing engineering after college, not medical school. But I think some of the concepts still apply. So some of you guys that might be interested in going somewhere else after college for graduate school or getting a career abroad, I think one of the best things that you can do if you end up doing this program is just talk to people and network. I ended up spending an entire summer during one of my years in medical school at a hospital in Japan, and that was just because I ran into some people when I was at the University of Tokyo, and that introduced me to other people, and through those people I met a professor or a physician up in this other place in Tochigi, and ended up setting up an entire summer rotation with him. So for those of you that are interested in doing things outside of the study abroad, yeah, just talk to people, meet people, and let them know you're interested. And the opportunities will come if you're persistent enough and eventually find the right person. But overall, I highly recommend going to one of these study abroad experiences that they're presenting at this conference. And for any of you that have any particular questions about Japan or medicine, anything like that, please feel free to reach out to me. I think Yuki has my email address. I could talk about this all day long if you ask me the right questions. So feel free to reach out.
Great. I didn't realize, the little program that I created back in 2013 made such a lasting impact on Jason's life. He ended up coming back to Japan twice after that, so you never know. And he said that he didn't get into the China program at first. He was studying Chinese. And then, just serendipitously, I, spoke to him about the program in Japan, and just kind of ended up changing his life. So, to you guys also, for you guys also, you never know what's going to come out of, studying abroad. And then, the important part, like Kate said, friends, making friends. And then, Jason also said, networking, that, got him a chance to work as a doctor or medical student in Japan also. So I think this is a good time to stop. It's 5:45 there, right? But if you have any questions for any of the panelists here, Kate and Grant are current students at Clemson. Rachel is an alumni, but also, if you contact Yuki or John C., they can handle many of the questions you have, or direct them to these panelists or to me also. All right, Yuki, do you have anything to add, or John C.?
Sure. Yeah, and among panelists, do you have any final, comment or message to prospective study abroad students? Good. Rachel, do you have anything to say as an ally? Yeah.
I'd say definitely do it. I mean, if it's Asia, if it's Europe, anywhere, just study abroad. It's a really great experience, and you probably won't get another opportunity like this, to go to a different country for such a long time. after leaving school. So I highly, highly recommend it.
Grant, Kate, do you have anything?
I was just going to say, you never know what opportunities will come out of study abroad, whether it's networking, like Jason was saying, or my friend Sarah, who held this position before I did, she went abroad for a summer in London, and then through connections and whatever series of events happened after that, ended up studying at the University of Cambridge for her master's and PhD, probably because she studied abroad in London after her freshman year. So you never know what will happen because study abroad, and it brings a lot of opportunities you wouldn't get otherwise.
Thank you. Grant, do you have any final comment?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much just what Rachel and Kate said, do it. I mean, there's really not a lot of reasons why you shouldn't. And obviously, if you have any issues, questions going abroad in general, like, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to answer anything you got.
Thank you.
Very
So,
good.
and I want to show, I want to just let you all know that because Noah actually had a great question, how he can get started with the study abroad process. So if you're College of Science students, I'm the one. So you can make an appointment with me via CU Navigate, as you do make an appointment with advisors. And if you're cecas students, then Jonesy is the one. And I'm going to show one slide that has our information. So here is our email address. If you somehow cannot find us via CU Navigate, this is our contact information. And if you have a general question about study abroad, or even virtual experience, because right now, we cannot travel internationally, but that doesn't mean you cannot, have global learning experience. We have a lot of virtual programs developed for this summer, and you should do that as well. As kind of test water as virtual program or experience, and then you can get into the country and have the in-person in-country experience. So here's the information, and Pam Hendricks Center for Education Abroad is the central office that you can reach out for any questions. Jonesy, do you have anything to add?
Oh yeah, I would just say the same thing as Yuki. If you are looking for a way to get started, you can find us in CU Navigate. We'll pop up based on your major, and it's never too early to meet with us. If you think I'm a freshman and I think I want to go abroad my junior year, like, go ahead and meet with us, because the earlier you meet with us, the better we can schedule your curriculum out to make sure that you have this beautiful semester abroad that's going to work out really well. So it's never too early to start meeting with us. And just thank you for taking the time to come. I know it's a busy time, it's a crazy time, but we are really hopeful for travel again sometime soon, and we have, like Yuki said, wonderful virtual options in the meantime.
Yes, so thank you so much once again for joining, all the panelists and the moderator, Dr. Adams. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, the audience, for taking time in this beautiful afternoon.